That night, when I got the call saying my husband's car had broken down on some back road near the old refinery, I thought I was just being a good wife by rushing out to help him. When I climbed into the rideshare at 11:47 p.m. and gave the driver the address, he didn't start moving. Instead, he locked every door with a heavy click that echoed through the silence. His voice came out rough, almost desperate. "Ma'am, you are not getting out at that location. Please, trust me." I felt my blood run cold. I asked him what he meant, why he was doing this. He just gripped the steering wheel until his knuckles went white and whispered, "Give me 5 minutes. 5 minutes and you'll understand everything." I sat frozen in that back seat, my heart pounding so loud I could hear it in my ears. I never imagined that exactly 5 minutes later, 4 police cruisers would surround us with their lights blazing. I never thought that night would completely destroy the life I knew and rebuild me into someone entirely new. But let me take you back to how it all started. The living room. Clock showed 11:15 p.m. When my phone buzzed on the coffee table, I had been curled up on the couch watching some cooking show, waiting for my husband Marcus to come home from what he called an emergency meeting with investors. We'd been married for 4 years, and in all that time, Marcus had been the kind of husband other women envied. Attentive, charming, always bringing me flowers on random Tuesdays, just because. He came from a modest background, worked his way up in real estate, and swept me off my feet with his ambition and warmth. My name is Renee. I inherited a small fortune from my parents after they passed in a car accident when I was 23. The money wasn't crazy rich, but it was enough. A nice house in the suburbs of Charlotte, some investment properties downtown, and a trust fund that kept everything stable. Marcus knew about all of it when we met, but he never seemed interested in the money. He was more interested in me. At least, that's what I believed. When I picked up the phone that night, Marcus's voice sounded strained, almost panicked. He told me his car had died on some isolated road near the old Whitmore refinery about 40 minutes outside the city. He said his phone was almost dead, that he'd forgotten his diabetes medication at home, and that he desperately needed me to bring it along with the spare car key. He sounded so helpless, so vulnerable, I didn't even question it. I rushed to our bedroom, grabbed his medication from the nightstand, found the spare key in the kitchen drawer, and threw on a jacket. I don't drive at night because of a minor vision issue that makes headlights blur into halos. So I pulled up the rideshare app on my phone with shaking fingers. The wait time said 12 minutes. I paced by the front door, clutching the medication bottle like it was Marcus's actual lifeline. When the app pinged that my driver had arrived, I hurried outside into the cold November air. A dark blue sedan sat idling at the curb. The driver was an older black man, maybe late 50s, with salt-and-pepper hair and deep-set eyes that seemed to see right through me. His name on the app said Walter. He nodded once as I climbed into the back seat, but didn't say a word. I gave him the address, some intersection near the refinery that Marcus had texted me. Walter typed it into his GPS, and I noticed his jaw tighten for just a second. Then he pulled away from the curb slowly, almost reluctantly. The first 10 minutes passed in complete silence. No music, no small talk, just the hum of the engine and the occasional swish of other cars passing by. I kept checking my phone, hoping Marcus would text again to say he was okay, but the screen stayed dark. My messages to him showed delivered but not read. I told myself his phone probably died completely, but something felt off. I couldn't explain it at first. Just this gnawing sensation in my stomach, like when you forget to turn off the stove and realize it 3 blocks from home. I glanced at Walter through the rearview mirror and caught him looking back at me. Not in a creepy way, but like he was studying me, trying to figure something out. I shifted uncomfortably in my seat. He looked away and focused on the road again. We were leaving the city now, the bright streetlights giving way to darker stretches of highway lined with bare trees. The GPS showed 32 minutes remaining. I hugged my purse closer, feeling the hard shape of Marcus's medication bottle inside. Walter cleared his throat. "You going out there alone this late?" I nodded, then realized he couldn't see me properly. "My husband's car broke down. I'm bringing him his medication." Medication, he repeated, like he was tasting the word. And he couldn't call a tow truck. His phone died, I said, a little defensive. He needs his insulin. Walter didn't respond. He just made a small sound in his throat, something between a hum and a grunt, and kept driving. But I noticed his eyes kept flicking to the mirrors, checking behind us, beside us. Like he expected someone to be following. My anxiety spiked. I'd read too many stories about rideshare drivers doing terrible things to passengers. Women disappearing, bodies found in ditches. I gripped my phone tighter, ready to dial 911 if I needed to. "You're Mr. Langston's daughter, aren't you?" His question came out of nowhere, and I felt like someone had dumped ice water down my spine. Langston was my maiden name. "My father's name," I stammered, asking him how he knew that. Walter's eyes met mine in the mirror again. "I worked for your father for 15 years. Security detail back when he had the shipping company. He was a good man, treated me like family." I didn't know what to say. My father had passed away 8 years ago, and the details of his business operations were fuzzy to me. I'd been in college then, more focused on finals than family legacy. "He asked me to keep an eye on you," Walter continued, "before he passed. Made me promise." I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature. "Keep an eye on me. What does that mean?" Walter didn't answer right away. He seemed to be choosing his words carefully, like each one cost him something. Finally, he said, "It means I've been watching. And ma'am, I don't like what I've been seeing lately." My heart started pounding again. "What are you talking about?" But Walter just shook his head and focused on the road. We were getting closer to the refinery area now. The buildings had disappeared entirely, replaced by open fields and the occasional rusted-out structure. Everything looked abandoned, forgotten. The GPS announced we were 8 minutes from our destination. That's when Walter did something that made my blood freeze. He pulled off the main road onto a small side street, drove about 100 yards, and stopped the car completely. Then he hit the lock button. I heard all 4 doors seal shut with a decisive thunk. I panicked. I grabbed the door handle and pulled, but nothing happened. I tried the other side. Same thing. Locked. I started banging on the window, screaming for help, but there was nobody around. Just darkness and empty fields and this man I didn't know who had me trapped. I was crying now, begging him to let me go. I offered him money, my phone, anything. I told him my husband was waiting for me, that people would come looking. Walter turned around in his seat for the first time. His face was tired, lined with years of hard living. But his eyes were sharp, intelligent, and behind the fear I saw in them, there was something else, determination. "Ma'am," he said firmly, "you are not getting out at that location. Your life depends on you listening to me right now." I sobbed harder. "Why? What's going on? Please just let me go." He held up a hand. 5 minutes. "Give me 5 minutes. If I'm wrong, I'll unlock these doors and you can report me to whoever you want. But if I'm right..." He trailed off, and the weight of what he wasn't saying pressed down on my chest. "If you're right, what?" I whispered. "Then I just saved your life." I didn't believe him. How could I? This man had locked me in his car in the middle of nowhere at almost midnight. Every survival instinct I had was screaming at me to fight, to escape, to run. But something in his voice made me hesitate. Something in those tired eyes that reminded me, just for a second, of the way my father used to look at me when he was trying to protect me from something I didn't understand. I sat back in the seat, trembling, and watched the clock on the dashboard. 11:5, 2:11:5, 3:11:5, each minute felt like an hour. Walter kept his eyes fixed on the road behind us, watching the mirrors with an intensity that made my skin crawl. The silence in the car was suffocating. 11 minutes, 55 seconds, and 11 milliseconds, 56. I was about to start screaming again when I heard it. Sirens, faint at first, then getting louder, closer. Blue and red lights appeared in the distance, racing toward us from multiple directions. Walter let out a breath, like he'd been holding it for years. The police cars surrounded us within seconds. 4 of them, maybe 5. Officers jumped out with their weapons drawn, shouting commands. I ducked down in the back seat, convinced they were coming for Walter, that they'd rescue me from whatever nightmare I'd stumbled into. But they didn't approach our car. They ran right past us, toward a cluster of abandoned buildings about 200 yards ahead, the exact location where Marcus had told me his car was broken down. I watched through the window as flashlights swept the area. I heard more shouting, the sounds of a struggle. Then one of the officers emerged, dragging a figure in dark clothing. The person fought against them, twisting and kicking until 2 more officers helped pin him to the ground. From the pocket of his jacket, something fell and clattered on the pavement. Even from this distance, I could see it catch the light. A syringe. A long, wicked-looking needle attached to a vial of something clear dot. My stomach lurched. Walter unlocked the doors, and the click sounded like the breaking of chains. I didn't move. I couldn't. My body had gone completely numb. An officer approached our car and spoke to Walter through the window like they knew each other. He said something about the target being in custody, about the situation being contained. Walter nodded and thanked him quietly. Then the officer looked at me, and his expression softened. "Ma'am, are you Renee Mitchell?" I could barely nod. "You're safe now," he said. "We got him before he could do anything." I finally found my voice. It came out cracked and broken. "Got who? What's happening? Where's my husband?" The officer exchanged a look with Walter. Neither of them answered immediately. Walter turned to face me fully. His expression had changed. The fear was gone, replaced by something that looked almost like grief. Like he was about to deliver news he'd been dreading for a long time. "Your husband is in here, Mrs. Mitchell," he said gently. "His car never broke down. There was no emergency." I shook my head, not understanding. "But he called me. He said ... double quotes. I know what he said." Walter reached into his jacket and pulled out a phone. Not his personal phone, but something different. A recording device. He pressed play, and Marcus's voice filled the car. But he wasn't talking to me. He was talking to someone else. A woman. And as I listened to their conversation, every word felt like a knife sliding between my ribs. The recording was grainy. It's probably captured through a phone hidden somewhere close. But the voices were unmistakable. Marcus, and beside him, laughing softly, was my cousin Desiree. Desiree, the woman who had been my maid of honor at my wedding. The one who called me every Sunday just to chat. The one who had dinner at our house at least twice a month and hugged me goodbye each time like she meant it. On the recording, Marcus was explaining the plan in detail. Cold, clinical detail. Like he was discussing a business transaction instead of my murder. "She come running this second I call," he said. "You know how she is. Always trying to be the perfect little wife. I'll tell her my car broke down, that I need my medication. She won't even think twice." Desiree's voice came through next, smooth and unbothered. "And you're sure about the location? It's isolated enough. The refinery's been abandoned for years. Nobody goes out there. Jerome will be waiting. One injection, she goes to sleep, and then—" Marcus paused. I heard ice clinking in a glass. "Then it looks like a carjacking gone wrong. Random violence. Tragic accident. Poor Renee, wrong place at the wrong time. And the inheritance. All mine within 6 months. The house, the properties, the trust fund. Everything her daddy left her. Then we disappear. Costa Rica just like we planned." Desiree laughed. It was a sound I'd heard 1,000 times at family gatherings, at birthday parties, at my own wedding reception. Now it sounded like something scraped from the bottom of a grave. "You really think she doesn't suspect anything?" Desiree asked Renee. Marcus snorted. "She trusts me completely. That woman would believe me if I told her the sky was green. For years of playing the perfect husband, and she's never questioned a single thing. It's almost too easy." The recording ended. The silence that followed was the loudest thing I'd ever heard. I sat in that back seat, unable to move, unable to breathe, unable to process what I'd just listened to. My husband of 4 years. The man who brought me coffee in bed every morning. The man who held me when I cried about missing my parents. The man I thought I'd grow old with. He wanted me dead, and my cousin. My own blood was helping him do it. Walter watched me through the mirror, giving me time to absorb the blow. He didn't try to comfort me with empty words. He just waited, patient and steady, like a rock in a storm. Finally, I managed to speak. My voice sounded foreign to my own ears. "How long have you known?" "About 6 weeks," Walter said quietly. "I've been watching Marcus since your wedding, just like your father asked. At first, everything seemed fine. He treated you well, at least on the surface. But about 2 years ago, I noticed some things that didn't add up." "What things?" Walter shifted in his seat. "Secret meetings. Cash withdrawals that didn't match his income. Late-night phone calls he'd take in his car instead of inside the house." I started digging deeper. "Turns out your husband has been living a double life since before you even met him." I felt sick. Physically, violently sick. I pressed my hand against my mouth and forced myself to breathe through my nose. "The gambling started about 5 years ago," Walter continued. "Online poker, sports betting, then the underground stuff. He's in deep with some very bad people. Owes almost $300,000 to a loan shark who doesn't believe in payment. Plans. $300,000. I've thought about all the times Marcus had complained about slow markets and difficult clients. All the times he'd asked me to co-sign loans or dip into my trust fund for business opportunities. I'd said yes every single time. Never questioned it. Never doubted him. How could I have been so stupid?" "Your cousin got involved about 18 months ago," Walter said. "From what I can tell, they've been having an affair since before your second anniversary. Desiree introduced him to some of her contacts. Helped him launder money through fake businesses. When the debts got too big to handle, they came up with this plan. To kill me," I whispered. "To kill you and take everything you have." Walter's voice was heavy with anger. He was barely containing. "The man they hired, Jerome Banks, is a professional. Done this kind of thing before. Makes it look like random crime, so there's nothing pointing back to the people who paid for it." I looked out the window toward the abandoned buildings where the police were still processing the scene. Somewhere in that darkness, a man had been waiting to end my life. And if Walter hadn't stopped me from getting out of the car, I shuddered violently. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" I asked. "If you've known for weeks, why wait until tonight?" Walter's expression flickered with something like guilt. "I needed proof. Real proof, not just suspicions. Your husband is smart, Mrs. Mitchell. He covers his tracks well. If I'd come to you with theories and hunches, you probably wouldn't have believed me. You loved him too much. It was right. I would have defended Marcus with everything I had. I would have called Walter crazy, maybe even reported him for stalking. I would have run straight back to my husband and told him everything, and then I would have been dead even sooner." "The recording I just played," Walter said. "I got that 3 days ago. They were meeting at a hotel downtown, planning the final details. Once I had it, I contacted my old friends in the department. We set up tonight's operation. Waited for Marcus to make his move. He called me," I said numbly. "He called me and told me to come. And we were ready. The officers have been positioned near the refinery since sundown. The moment you ordered that rideshare and put in the address, I made sure I was the one who accepted the request. I wasn't about to let anyone else drive you into that trap." I looked at this man I barely remembered from my childhood. This stranger who had dedicated years of his life to watching over me from the shadows because my father had asked him to. My father, who I'd lost so long ago, was still protecting me somehow. The tears came then. Not the panicked crying from before, but something deeper. Grief and gratitude and rage all twisted together until I couldn't tell them apart anymore. Walter handed me a pack of tissues from the glove compartment. "Take your time," he said. "We're safe here." I don't know how long I sat there crying. It could have been 5 minutes or 50. The police finished their work at the refinery and started driving away. An officer came by to let us know they'd be transporting Jerome Banks to the station for processing and that detectives Would want to speak with me in the morning. Walter thanked him and rolled up the window. What happens now? I finally asked, wiping my face with a soggy tissue. Do they arrest Marcus? Walter shook his head slowly. That's complicated. Jerome Banks will talk eventually, but he's a professional. He knows how to lawyer up. Right now, we don't have direct evidence tying Marcus to the payment. The recording helps, but a good defense attorney could argue it was taken illegally, that it's not admissible. So he just gets away with it. No, Walter's voice hardened. But we have to be smart. Your husband doesn't know the plan failed yet. He thinks you're on your way to meet Jerome right now. He's probably sitting at home waiting for a phone call that's never going to come. I thought about that. Marcus at home, checking his watch, wondering why he hasn't heard anything. Refreshing his phone, getting nervous. But not worried about me. Worried about whether his plan was working. Something dark stirred in my chest. Something I'd never felt before. It's going to realize something went wrong, I said. Eventually, yes. When the news breaks about Jerome's arrest, he'll know. But that won't happen until morning, which means we have tonight to prepare. Walter turned the key in the ignition and the car hummed back to life. I'm taking you somewhere safe. A hotel outside the city where Marcus won't think to look. Tomorrow, we meet with the detectives and then we figure out our next move.
I nodded, too exhausted to argue. The adrenaline was fading now, leaving behind a bone-deep tiredness that made everything feel underwater. As Walter pulled back onto the main road, I closed my eyes and let the motion of the car carry me. But sleep wouldn't come. Every time I drifted close, I saw Marcus's face, his smile, the way he looked at me across the dinner table like I was the only person in the world who mattered. All of it fake, every single moment, a performance designed to keep me blind until he was ready to cash in. I had never hated anyone before, not really. But sitting in that car, driving away from the place where I was supposed to die, I felt hatred bloom inside me like a flower made of thorns. And I decided something in that darkness. I wasn't going to run. I wasn't going to hide. I was going to make Marcus and Desiree pay for every lie they'd ever told me, not with violence, but with something worse. I was going to destroy them completely. The hotel Walter took me to was a modest place about 40 minutes outside Charlotte. Nothing fancy, just clean rooms and a parking lot hidden from the main road. He booked 2 rooms under fake names and paid cash so there'd be no trail for Marcus to follow. I barely remember walking to my room. Everything felt like it was happening to someone else. I showered until the water ran cold, trying to wash away the feeling of Marcus's hands on my skin, his lips on my forehead, all those intimate moments that now felt contaminated. When I finally climbed into bed, I stared at the ceiling for hours. My phone sat on the nightstand, dark and silent. I'd turned it off on Walter's advice. If Marcus tried to call or track my location, he'd get nothing. Let him wonder. Let him panic. Around 4 a.m, I finally drifted into something that wasn't quite sleep. More like a trance, full of fragmented dreams and broken memories. I dreamed of my father. He was standing in his office at the shipping company, looking out the window at the harbor. He turned when I walked in, and his face was exactly as I remembered it. Warm, worried, loving. "Be smart, baby girl," he said. "Don't let them see you coming." I woke up with those words echoing in my head. Be smart, don't let them see you coming. Walter knocked on my door at 7. He'd brought coffee and breakfast sandwiches from a gas station down the road. We ate in his room while he laid out everything he knew about Marcus's financial situation. It was worse than I'd imagined. The $300,000 he owed was just the tip of the iceberg. Marcus had been siphoning money from my accounts for years. Small amounts at first, things I wouldn't notice. A few hundred here, 1,000 there, but it had added up. By Walter's calculations, he'd stolen nearly $90,000 over the course of our marriage. He'd also forged my signature on several documents. Loan applications using my properties as collateral. Credit lines I'd never authorized. There was even a life insurance policy taken out in my name about 8 months ago. $1 million, with Marcus listed as the sole beneficiary. $1 million. That was what my life was worth to him. The policy would have paid out within weeks of your death, Walter explained. Combined with the inheritance, Marcus and Desiree would have walked away with close to $2 million in liquid assets. Plenty to pay off his debts and fund a very comfortable life somewhere without extradition. I set down my coffee. My hands were shaking again, but not from fear this time. Pure, crystallized rage. How do we stop him? I asked. Walter smiled for the first time since I'd met him. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of a man who'd been waiting a long time for someone to ask that exact question. First, he said, we need to protect your assets before Marcus realizes the plan has failed. Once he knows you're alive and suspicious, he'll try to move money, liquidate properties, cover his tracks. We have to beat him to it. How? I have contacts at your bank, old friends from my security days. We can freeze your accounts temporarily, citing suspicious activity. That locks Marcus out until you authorize further access. Do it, I said without hesitation. Walter nodded. Second, we need legal protection. A restraining order, divorce papers, the works. I know an attorney who specializes in cases like this. She's handled domestic fraud before, knows how to move fast and quiet. Call her. Already did. She's meeting us at noon. I looked at this man who had done more for me in one night than my husband had done in 4 years. Walter, I don't know how to thank you. Don't thank me yet, he said. We've got a long road ahead. Marcus is desperate, and desperate men do dangerous things. Until he's behind bars, you're not safe. I understand. Do you? Walter leaned forward, his expression serious. Because what I'm about to suggest isn't easy. It requires patience, discipline, and the ability to look a monster in the eye without flinching. My heart beat faster. Tell me. Marcus doesn't know you've discovered anything. Right now, he's probably panicking because Jerome got arrested, but he doesn't know you were the intended target. The police are keeping your name out of the initial reports. As far as Marcus knows, his plan just got unlucky. So we use that? Walter's eyes gleamed with cold calculation. You go home, act like nothing happened. Pretend you never got his call, that your phone died or something. Give him a story he can believe. And while he's relaxing, thinking he dodged a bullet, we gather evidence. Recordings, documents, whatever we need to bury him in court. I stared at Walter. You want me to go back to him? Live in the same house as the man who tried to have me killed? For a little while, a week, maybe 2, just long enough to catch him in the act. He'll slip up, Mrs. Mitchell. Men like him always do. And when he does, we'll be ready. The idea terrified me. But beneath the fear, something else stirred. That dark flower of hatred growing stronger with every passing minute. Marcus had treated me like a fool for 4 years. Used me, manipulated me, planned my murder while kissing me goodnight. He thought I was weak. He thought I'd never figure it out. He was wrong. Okay, I said quietly. I'll do it. Walter studied my face for a long moment. Whatever he saw there must have satisfied him, because he nodded once and stood up. Then let's get you ready. The game starts today. The attorney's name was Patricia Vance. She was a sharp-faced woman in her early 60s with silver hair pulled back in a severe bun and eyes that missed nothing. Walter had been right about her. Within 2 hours of our meeting, she had drafted emergency motions to freeze my assets, initiated divorce proceedings under seal, and prepared a detailed strategy for building the criminal case against Marcus. The recording is problematic, she admitted, reviewing the file Walter had compiled. But it's not useless. Combined with the financial evidence, the forged signatures, and Jerome Banks's eventual testimony, we can build something solid. The key is patience. Patience, that word kept coming up. Patricia handed me a small device that looked like a pen. Voice-activated recorder, she explained. Keep it on you at all times. Any conversation with your husband, any phone calls you overhear, anything at all. The more we have, the harder it becomes for his lawyers to dismiss everything. I took the pen and slipped it into my purse. It felt heavier than it should have. "There's one more thing," Patricia said, her expression softening slightly. "This is going to be hard. Pretending to love someone you now hate, acting normal when every instinct tells you to run. If at any point you feel unsafe, you call Walter immediately. Your life is more important than any evidence." I nodded, but inside I'd already made my decision. I wasn't going to break. I was going to be the perfect actress, just like Marcus had been the perfect liar. And when the curtain finally fell, he would never see it coming. Walter drove me home around 3 in the afternoon. The plan was simple. I would tell Marcus that my phone had died the night before and I'd fallen asleep early. I never got his call about the car. As far as I knew, nothing unusual had happened. The neighborhood looked exactly the same as it always did. Neat lawns, expensive cars in driveways, the illusion of perfect lives behind every door. My house sat at the end of the cul-de-sac, a beautiful 2-story colonial that my parents had bought before I was born. I'd grown up in that house, taken my first steps in that living room, and for the past 4 years, I'd shared it with a man who wanted me dead. Walter stopped the car a few houses down. "You sure about this?" I looked at the house, my house, the home Marcus thought he was going to steal from me. "I'm sure. Remember, I'm always watching. Anything feels wrong, anything at all, you text me the word sunrise, and I'll have police there in minutes." I squeezed his hand once, then got out of the car and walked toward my front door like it was any other day. Marcus's car was in the driveway. My heart pounded as I climbed the porch steps, but I forced my face into a calm expression. Slightly tired, maybe a little confused about why he'd come home early. Nothing more. I opened the door. The house smelled like coffee and something else. Cologne, not Marcus's usual brand, but something sharper, more anxious. He was sitting on the couch when I walked in, his phone clutched in his hand, his leg bouncing with nervous energy. When he saw me, his face cycled through about 6 different emotions in 2 seconds. Shock, relief, confusion, then something darker that he quickly masked with a smile. "Renee," he jumped up and rushed toward me, pulling me into a hug that felt like a trap. "Baby, where have you been? I've been calling you all morning." I let him hold me, fighting the urge to shove him away. "My phone died," I said, keeping my voice light and apologetic. "I fell asleep on the couch last night watching that baking show. Didn't even realize it was dead until I woke up this morning. What's wrong? You look stressed." Marcus pulled back, studying my face with an intensity that made my skin crawl. He was looking for something. Suspicion, maybe. Fear. Any sign that I knew what he'd done. I gave him nothing but innocent confusion. "I tried to call you last night," he said slowly, testing me. "My car broke down on the way home from the meeting. I was stranded for hours." "Oh no." I put my hand on his chest, feeling his heart racing beneath my palm. "Baby, are you okay? What happened?" "It's fine now. I got it towed this morning." He was watching me so carefully, analyzing every micro-expression. "You really didn't get any of my calls." I shook my head. "Phone was completely dead. I'm so sorry you were stuck out there alone. You must have been freezing." Something in his shoulders relaxed slightly. Not all the way, but enough. He was buying it. "It's okay," he said, pulling me close again. "I'm just glad you're safe." The irony of those words almost made me laugh. Almost. The next few days were the hardest of my life. I cooked Marcus's favorite meals. I smiled when he came home from work. I let him hold me at night, his arms wrapped around me like chains, his breath hot against my neck. Every touch made me want to scream, but I swallowed it down, buried it deep. "Be smart. Don't let them see you coming." The pen recorder went everywhere with me. I captured conversations, phone calls, muttered comments Marcus made when he thought I wasn't listening. Most of it was mundane, but occasionally there were gems. One night, about 4 days after I came home, Marcus got a phone call around 11. He glanced at me sleeping on the couch, then slipped out to the garage to take it. What he didn't know was that I'd hidden one of Walter's surveillance devices in his toolbox 2 days earlier. I listened through my earbuds as Marcus talked to someone with a gruff voice. The loan sharks collector, I later learned. "I need more time," Marcus said, his voice cracking with desperation. "The situation got complicated. I'm working on another solution." The collector laughed. It was an ugly sound. "You've had 2 years of time, pretty boy. Mr. Castellano is done waiting. You've got until the end of the month or we start collecting in other ways. That nice house of yours would make a good start, or maybe that pretty wife." "Leave her out of this," Marcus snapped. Then, quieter, "She's worth more to me alive right now. I just need to figure out a different approach." Worth more alive. Like I was a stock he was waiting to cash in. I saved the recording and sent it to Walter immediately. The evidence was piling up. Patricia called me every other day with updates. Jerome Banks had started talking after his lawyer worked out a deal. He was willing to testify that Marcus had hired him through an intermediary, though he claimed he'd never met Marcus face to face. The intermediary was being tracked down. Meanwhile, Desiree had gone quiet. She hadn't called me since the night of the failed attempt, which was unusual. Before, she'd text me almost daily with random gossip or lunch invitations. Now, nothing. I decided to push. One afternoon, I called her myself. She answered on the 4th ring, her voice artificially bright. "Renee, hey girl, I was just thinking about you." "Really?" I kept my tone warm and trusting. "Because I feel like I haven't heard from you in forever. Everything okay?" "Oh, you know how it is. Work's been crazy, but we should totally get together soon." "Actually," I said, "that's why I'm calling. Marcus has been so stressed lately, and I thought it might be nice to have a little dinner party this weekend. Just us 3, like old times. What do you think?" There was a pause on the other end. I could almost hear Desiree's mind racing, trying to figure out if this was a trap. "This weekend," she finally said. Yeah, that could work, Saturday." "Saturday's perfect. 7 o'clock. I'll make that pasta dish you love." "Sounds great." Another pause. "Renee, are you sure everything's okay? You sound different." I smiled into the phone. "I've never been better. See you Saturday, cuz." I hung up and immediately texted Walter. The trap was set. Saturday evening arrived with a cold wind and heavy clouds that promised rain. I spent the afternoon cooking, setting the table with our finest china, and preparing myself for the performance of a lifetime. Marcus came home around 5, looking nervous. He'd been jumpier than usual all week, startling at small sounds, checking his phone constantly. The pressure from his creditors was mounting, and Jerome Banks's arrest had clearly shaken him. He still didn't know I was the intended target, but he knew his plan had fallen apart. "Desiree's coming for dinner?" he asked, watching me arrange flowers in a vase. "Yep, just a casual evening. I thought we could all use some relaxation." He nodded slowly, his eyes darting toward his phone again. I wondered if he and Desiree had been communicating, trying to figure out their next move. Probably, but they had no idea what was waiting for them. Desiree arrived at 7 on the dot, carrying a bottle of wine and wearing a dress that was far too fancy for a casual dinner. She hugged me at the door, and I felt the tension in her body, the way she pulled back a fraction too quickly. "You look amazing," she said, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "Thanks, so do you." I took the wine and led her inside. "Marcus is in the living room. Go say hi while I finish up in the kitchen." I watched her walk away, her heels clicking on the hardwood floor. In my pocket, the pen recorder was running. Dinner started pleasantly enough. We talked about work, about the weather, about a new restaurant that had opened downtown. Marcus and Desiree were careful not to look at each other too long or sit too close. They were good actors, I had to admit, just not as good as me. I waited until we were halfway through the main course before I made my move. "You know," I said casually, setting down my fork, "I've been having the strangest dreams lately." Marcus looked up. "Dreams?" I took a sip of wine, watching both of them over the rim of my glass. Really vivid ones, almost like memories. There was this one where I was trapped in a car at night and police sirens were everywhere, and another where I found out someone I loved had been lying to me for years. The color drained from Desiree's face. Marcus's hand tightened around his fork. "That sounds intense," Desiree said, her voice slightly strained. "Maybe you should see someone about that, a therapist or something." "Maybe," I tilted my head, studying her. "But here's the weird thing. In the dream, the person who betrayed me was someone really close, someone I trusted completely, and she was working with my husband to steal everything I had." Silence. Marcus cleared his throat. "Renee, are you feeling okay? You're acting strange." "Am I?" I smiled sweetly. "I'm sorry, I'm probably just tired. But you know what really gets me about these dreams? The details are so specific. There's always an abandoned refinery, a man with a syringe full of something dangerous, a fake phone call about a broken-down car." Desiree's fork clattered against her plate. She didn't pick it up. "And the craziest part," I continued, my voice dropping to almost a whisper, "is that in the dream I have recordings of everything. Conversations, plans, confessions. Enough to send everyone involved to prison for a very, very long time." Marcus stood up so fast his chair crashed backward. "What the hell are you talking about?" I stood too, slowly and deliberately. All the pretending, all the masks fell away. What remained was the woman who had nearly died because of the man in front of me. "I'm talking about the night you sent me to be murdered, Marcus. I'm talking about Jerome Banks and his syringe full of sedatives. I'm talking about Desiree helping you plan every detail while sleeping in your bed behind my back." "Renee, that's insane," Desiree started, but I cut her off. "I have recordings, Desiree, hours of them. You two discussing how much money you'd get after I was dead. Marcus begging his loan shark for more time. Both of you celebrating in that hotel room after you thought the plan was set." I pulled out my phone and pressed play. Their voices filled the room, undeniable and damning. Marcus lunged toward me, but he didn't get far. The front door burst open, and 4 police officers rushed in with weapons drawn. Behind them came Walter, calm and steady as always. "Marcus Mitchell," one of the officers announced, "you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, and forgery. You have the right to remain silent." The rest of the words blurred together as they forced Marcus to the ground and cuffed his hands behind his back. Desiree tried to run toward the back door, but 2 more officers were waiting for her there. She screamed and cursed and blamed Marcus for everything, but nobody was listening. I stood in the middle of my dining room, surrounded by the chaos I had orchestrated, and felt something I hadn't experienced in a long time. Peace. The trials took almost a year. Marcus tried everything to wriggle out of the charges. He blamed Desiree. He blamed the loan sharks. He even tried to claim I had somehow set him up, that I was the real mastermind. But the evidence was overwhelming. The recordings, the financial documents, Jerome Banks's testimony, the forged signatures. One by one, his lies crumbled. He was sentenced to 25 years in federal prison. No possibility of parole for at least 15. Desiree got 18 years as an accessory. The judge called their plan cold-blooded and calculated, and said she hoped they would use their time behind bars to reflect on the lives they had tried to destroy. I attended every day of the trial. I watched Marcus's face when the verdict was read, saw the exact moment he realized his perfect con had completely collapsed. There was no satisfaction in his pain, not really, but there was closure. The loan shark, Mr. Castellano, was arrested 3 months later as part of a larger RICO investigation that Marcus's case had helped trigger. His entire operation was dismantled. Sometimes justice has a way of multiplying. After the trials ended, I took some time to rebuild. I renovated the house completely. New paint, new furniture, new everything. Every trace of Marcus was erased. The bedroom where he'd held me at night became a home office filled with plants and sunlight. The dining room where I'd confronted them became a cozy reading nook. I also took over active management of my family's investment properties. It turned out I had a talent for business that I'd never explored because Marcus had always insisted on handling the finances. Within 6 months, I'd increased the portfolio's value by 15%. Walter became a permanent fixture in my life, not as a bodyguard anymore, but as family. He joined me for Sunday dinners, helped me plant a garden in the backyard, told me stories about my father that I'd never heard before. One evening, about a year after the trials ended, we sat on the porch watching the sunset. The sky was painted in shades of orange and pink, and the air smelled like jasmine from the bushes I'd planted along the fence. "Your daddy would be proud of you," Walter said quietly. "You know that." I smiled, feeling tears prick at my eyes. Good tears this time. I hope so. "He always said you were stronger than you knew, that one day you'd find your fire." Walter chuckled softly. "I think he'd say you found it pretty good." I thought about everything I'd survived. The betrayal, the fear, the long nights of pretending to love a monster. And I thought about everything that had come after. The strength I'd discovered. The life I'd built from the ashes of the one that was stolen from me. "I couldn't have done it without you," I told Walter. "That night in the car when you locked the doors, you saved my life." He shook his head. "I just bought you 5 minutes. You saved yourself." Maybe he was right. Maybe that terrified woman in the backseat had found something she didn't know she had. A core of steel beneath all those years of softness. A refusal to be a victim. The sun dipped below the horizon, and the first stars began to appear. Somewhere out there, Marcus and Desiree were sleeping in cold cells, facing decades of consequences for their choices. But I wasn't thinking about them anymore. I was thinking about tomorrow. About the trip I'd booked to visit my parents' graves in South Carolina. About the nonprofit I was starting to help domestic abuse survivors. About all the beautiful, ordinary days stretching out ahead of me like a road I finally got to choose. That night, I slept better than I had in years. No more nightmares, no more fear, just peace, earned through fire and tempered into something unbreakable. And as I drifted off, I could almost hear my father's voice whispering in the darkness. "That's my girl." I smiled into my pillow. And I lived happily ever after, with a big smile. The end. Thank you for reading. Did you enjoy this story? Which city are you watching from? Let me know in the comments below.